Good morning. Please join us as we sing our gathering hymn, Gracias por el Amor.
Gracias por el amor del cielo, gracias por el inmenso mar, gracias por el cantar del bosque, aleluya. Gracias por el amor del mundo,
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to worship at First Unitarian Church in Portland, Oregon. Our mission is to nurture the individual spirit and together to work toward the beloved community. We're so glad you've decided to join us this morning. This coming week will be the Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly. This will be the first all-virtual GA, a milestone. For the next 2 weeks, our Sunday worship will be 2 of the worship services from the General Assembly. This is a chance for us to gather virtually with our larger family of faith, as well as to be graced with some wonderful preaching and music. And as we look to this summer, some things to look forward to. On July the 12th, we'll be trying a virtual social hour after our worship. And also next month, we will be welcoming a new intern minister. Her name is Stacy Mitchell, and she will begin her internship here in mid-July. Once again, welcome everyone to First Unitarian Church. It is good that we're gathered together. Reverend Bill will light our chalice on the chancel this morning. If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to light it now. We are Unitarian Universalists. We light this chalice in faith, in hope, and in love.
Good morning, sun. I am a bird wearing a brown polyester shirt. You want a Coke, maybe some fries. The roast beef combo's only $9.95. It's okay. Don't have to pay. I've got all the change. Everybody knows it hurts to grow up, and everybody does. So weird to be back here. Let me tell you what, the years go on and we're still fighting it, we're still fighting it, and you're so much like me. I'm sorry. Good morning, sun. 20 years from now, maybe we'll both sit down and have a few beers. And I can tell you about today and how I picked you up and everything changed. It was pain, sunny days and rain. I knew you'd feel the same thing. Everybody knows it sucks to grow up, and everybody does. So weird to be back here. Let me tell you what, the years go on and we're still fighting it. We're still fighting it. We try and try, and one day you fly away from me. Good morning, sun. Good morning, sun. Good morning, sun. Good morning, sun.
Good morning, sun.
Good morning, sun.
I am a bird.
Good morning, sun. Good morning. everybody knows it hurts to grow up, and everybody does. So weird to be back here. Let me tell you what, the years go on and we're still fighting it. We're still fighting it, and we're still fighting it. We're still fighting it, and you're so much
like me. I'm sorry.
The words of Paul Robeson. Sorrow will one day turn to joy. All that breaks the heart and oppresses the soul will one day give place to peace and understanding, and everyone will be free. I invite you to join in our hymn, Will the Circle Be Unbroken?
Taught us how to build it. Strive we now in memory of. Will the circle be unbroken? By and by, yes, by and by. Life and love join one together. Oh, by and by.
Please join in our responsive reading. It's entitled, Come In, by Kathleen McTeague. You who are brokenhearted, who woke up today with the winds of despair whistling through your mind, come in. You who are brave but wounded, limping through life and hurting with every step, come in. You who are fearful, who live with shadows hovering over your shoulders, come in. This place is sanctuary. It is for you. You who are filled with happiness, whose abundance overflows, come in. You who walk through your world with lightness and grace, who awoke this morning with strength and hope, you who have everything to give, come in. This place is your calling, a riverbank to channel the sweet waters of your life, the place where you are called by the world's need. Here we offer in love. Here we receive in gratitude. Here we make a circle from the great gifts of breath, attention, and purpose. Come in. Please join now in singing our doxology, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the head, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me. Come to me.
Good morning, everyone. And Tango Makes Three is our story for all ages this morning. It's written by Justin Richardson and Peter Parnell, illustrated by Henry Cole. In the middle of New York City, there is a great big park called Central Park. Children love to play there. It has a toy boat pond where they can sail their boats. It has a carousel to ride on in the summer and an ice rink to skate on in the winter. Best of all, it has its very own zoo. And every day, families of all kinds go to visit the animals that live there. But children and their parents aren't the only families at the zoo. The animals make families of their own. There are red panda bear families with mothers and fathers and furry red panda bear cubs. There are monkey dads and monkey moms raising noisy monkey babies. There are toad families and toucan families and cotton-top tamarin families too. And in the penguin house, there are penguin families. Every year at the very same time, the girl penguins start noticing the boy penguins, and the boy penguins start noticing the girls. When the right girl and the right boy find each other, they become a couple. Two penguins in the penguin house were a little bit different. One was named Roy and the other one named Silo. Roy and Silo were both boys, but they did everything together. They bowed to each other and walked together. They sang to each other and they swam together. Wherever Roy went, Silo went too. They didn't spend much time with the girl penguins, and the girl penguins didn't spend much time with them. Instead, Roy and Silo wound their necks around each other. Their keeper, Mr. Gramsay, noticed the two penguins and thought to himself, they must be in love. Roy and Silo watched how the other penguins made a home. So they built a nest of stones for themselves, and every night Roy and Silo slept there together, just like the other penguin couples. And every morning Roy and Silo woke up together. But one day, Roy and Silo saw that the other couples could do something that they could not. The mama penguin would lay an egg. She and the papa penguin would take turns keeping the egg warm until finally it would hatch, and then there would be a baby penguin. Roy and Silo had no egg to sit on and keep warm. They had no baby chick to feed and cuddle and love. Their nest was nice, but it was a little empty. One day, Roy found something that looked like what the other penguins were hatching, and he brought it to their nest. It was only a rock, but Silo carefully sat on it, and sat, and sat. When Silo got sleepy, he slept, and when Silo was done sleeping and sitting, he swam, and Roy sat. Day after day, Silo and Roy sat on the rock, but nothing happened. Then Mr. Gramsay got an idea. He found an egg that needed to be cared for, and he brought it to Roy and Silo's nest. Roy and Silo knew just what to do. They moved the egg to the center of their nest, and every day they turned it so each side stayed warm. Some days Roy sat while Silo went for food, and other days it was Silo's turn to take care of their egg. They sat in the morning and they sat at night. They sat through lunchtime and swim time and supper. They sat at the beginning of the month and they sat at the end of the month, and they sat all of the days in between. Until one day they heard a sound coming from inside their egg. Peep, 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 it said. Roy and Silo called back. Squawk, squawk. Peep, peep, answered the egg. Suddenly, a tiny hole appeared in the egg shell. And then, crack! Out came their very own baby. She had fuzzy white feathers and a funny black beak. And now Roy and Silo were fathers. We'll call her Tango, Mr. Gramsay decided, because it takes two to make a tango. Roy and Silo taught Tango how to sing for them when she was hungry. They fed her food from their beaks. They snuggled her in their nest at night. Tango was the very first penguin in the zoo to have two daddies. Soon Tango grew strong enough to leave the nest. Roy and Silo took her for a swim, just like all the other penguin families. And all the children who came to the zoo could see Tango and her two fathers playing in the penguin house with the other penguins. Hooray, Roy! Hooray, Silo! Welcome, Tango! They cheered. At night, the three penguins returned to their nest. There, they snuggled together, and like all the other penguins in the penguin house, and all the other animals in the zoo, and all the families in the big city around them, they went to sleep. Every family is unique and special, and that's part of what makes our learning community and the world a beautiful place. Thank you for listening to our story this morning. Over the summer, you'll see some different faces here on Sunday mornings offering our time for all ages. I look forward to watching them with you, and I'll see you soon.
Part of how the ministry of this congregation connects to our larger community is through our offering and our shared plate. For this month of June, we're sharing with the Oregon Worker Relief Fund, which gets dollars in the hands of immigrant Oregon workers who are being left out of federal stimulus money. 100% of the donations go directly to community members in need who cannot access unemployment insurance benefits. The fund is a collaborative of community-based organizations and endorsed by over 100 organizations. You can scan the QR code on your screen. You can click the Give Now button if you're watching us via Boxcast. However you give, thank you for your generosity this morning. We'll now gratefully receive our offering. Each week as we gather, we hold the concerns of our community life together. This morning we hold member Ruby Tidwell and her mother Vicki Linter. Ruby's grandmother, Vicki's mother, died peacefully on Thursday in Hilo, Hawaii, with Vicki at her side. Ruby's words, "It was a joyful and beautiful passing, and we know that she will be welcomed into the next world by her other daughter, Lori. She will be deeply missed and remains deeply loved." And once again, we hold the concerns of our larger world this morning, including the continued toll of COVID-19 in our state and in our world. Bobby Rutledge, who went by Bobby Ray, died on April the 1st of coronavirus at the age of 77. He had advanced dementia and was a resident at Laurelhurst Village here in Portland. His wife, Thelma, said this of him, "When Bob was talking to you, you know, he was really talking to you. He just had a way of putting people at ease. They believed in him." We hold Bobby's whole family in our prayers today. And in that spirit, will you pray with me now? Spirit of life and of love, God of many names and no name at all, hear all the concerns we name, spoken and unspoken, as we gather together this day. We come with much on our hearts and on our minds in this time we are in spirit. We lift our voices in hope for change that might be possible, in hopes that this may be a time of real turning. Call us to see ourselves, each and every one of us, to be part of that turning. Grant us courage, grant us hope. Help us to see beyond our individual selves and as part of some larger whole. And through it all, ground us in love. On this Father's Day, we honor fathers. We honor all who parent. And just as we recognize the blessings of their lives, may we also make a space to recognize how they may have fallen short, how they may have not been able to give us all that we needed. On this Father's Day, may we find our way to forgiveness. May we find our way to peace. May we find our way to gratitude. And in seeing the whole of their lives, may we recognize the same in ourselves, how we each bring our gifts, our burdens, our histories, our yearnings, and that sometimes we too will fall short. Help us to recognize the importance of the choices we make, of the lives we lead, in the possibility too that we have to begin again in love. In these times of turning, help us to bear witness. Help us to use our gifts well. Help us, in all that we do, to make manifest that community we call beloved. Amen. Let's take a moment now and be together in silence. Please join as we sing together, Precious Lord, Take My Hand.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn through the storm.
Our reading today comes from Lama Rod Owens from Radical Dharma. In the end, my healing has been learning to see myself and to celebrate myself. It is interrogating the stories about how I do not matter and choosing to let go of those narratives and engage in the necessary and revolutionary work of self-love and liberation. In the end, I am no longer the little boy having to hold the potential violence of those in stress around me, or the little boy who is afraid to claim his love for other men, or the preteen who is challenged to make meaning out of race and class, or the young teen terrified of riding the bus, or the young man othered because of his body type, or the man who is told that the feelings of marginalization are his issue, not the issue of a community steeped in white supremacist cultural norms. I am no longer those people, but I remember their stories. They made me who I am, Because of them, I have earned my dharma, my message, my truth. I have been blessed with a testimony.
Song say where you're going, my son. Now I know they're true. Boy, you never stop to think how fast the years run. Now they're taking you. I remember you was 3.5. Your ma and me, we'd sit there after things got quieted. We'd laugh at some new word you said, how tough you were to get to bed, and we'd plan the night away, planning for our kid. I was your hero then. I couldn't do no wrong as far as you were concerned. You thought I was the best of men. The tables hadn't turned. You hadn't learned how little time it takes. And daddies make mistakes. It seems to me that lately I've been thinking a lot. I think about my dad. Lots of funny things come back I thought I'd forgot. Now they make me sad. High school and it used to be. I didn't want him touching me, and I shuddered if he did. Further back to summer nights, baseball games beneath the lights, and sleeping in the car. Daddy and his kid. He was my hero then. He couldn't do no wrong as far as I were concerned. I thought he was the wisest and the strongest and the best of men. The tables hadn't turned. I hadn't learned how little time it takes. And everybody breaks, and daddies make mistakes. I heard a lot of songs say, where you going, my son? Now I know they're for real. Boy, you never stop to think how fast the years run, or the things they steal. Now it seems I always knew why I do the things I do and the things I never did. Why I work my whole damn life so as I could give a better life than the one my dad could give me. I give it to my kid.
My healing has been learning to see myself and to celebrate myself, choosing to let go of the stories about how I do not matter, and to engage in the revolutionary work of self-love and the revolutionary work of liberation. Lama Rod Owens, in our reading, finds his truth, his dharma, and claims his testimony. He, of course, is speaking out of his deep Buddhist grounding, but his journey speaks to me and perhaps to you, perhaps to those of us who identify as male, it may speak with particular power. This is a narrative of letting go of assumptions, letting go of ways of being that are unfulfilling, even destructive, and discovering self-love and liberation in the exploration of new paths and different ways of being, new truths, new aspirations, that new Dharma that he spoke of. Happy Father's Day. To all the fathers and grandfathers, to all the uncles and family friends, to the teachers and the coaches, to all the father figures, and to all of the mothers and grandmothers and aunts who have filled in when fathers were absent for whatever reason. The absent or the unavailable father is too common a theme not to mention on Father's Day. To all of those who father, happy Father's Day. You know, our understanding of gender identity and gender roles has opened up so much since I was growing up. I don't remember ever having the rigid gender binary questioned. And the assumptions about being a man and a father seemed chiseled in stone, seemed given. Fathers were the ones who had the answers, had things figured out, were able to navigate the world. We are supposed to be strong, to be protectors, and to move with clarity of purpose and with moral certainty. The best of men. And even if we were not personally positioned out in the world to do any of that, if you were a man of color or queer or trans or disabled, even if you were oppressed out in the world, most of us still bought into those expectations at some level, and we often suffered as a result. So when I wish male-identified folks, when I wish men a happy Father's Day, it is not wrong for me to understand that I am speaking to a community of individuals who are in recovery, at least many of us. If there were a 12-step program for this, we would all be testifying. Hello, my name is Bill. I'm recovering from toxic masculinity. But perhaps that's too much about me. I know. But I certainly have spent much of my life trying to understand the privileges I enjoy as a cisgender man in this culture, and the ways that I have therefore colluded with a culture that keeps female-identified folks underpaid, overworked, and undervalued, and queer and non-binary folks on the margin, despite my intentions to the contrary. Toxic masculinity indeed. Toxic and very persistent. Now, most of us have gotten the memo that those old assumptions, that old program for manhood, is a dead end. Many of us now even understand that those old assumptions are part of that culture of white supremacy that we may finally be beginning to inspect and dismantle. All of these things are related. And we've gotten the memo, those of us who are male-identified. We know that we are called to show up in different ways. But on Father's Day, it is also fair to acknowledge, perhaps even to confess, that we are all still on a journey to discover what that different way might be. And we've been trying to shift that paradigm for a very long time. Perhaps sheltering at home these last months, for those of us with homes to shelter in, and being with our children full-time, especially for those of us who have school-aged children, perhaps these last months have raised some of those questions about gender roles and expectations again. And perhaps today can be a kind of check-in with ourselves about how far we've come and how far we may still have to go. The model of this service was drawn from our Mother's Day service, when 3 mothers in the congregation spoke some of their truth. Today I have asked 3 fathers, 3 male-identified parents, to offer their testimony on what parenting as a male person has meant for them, and also how it has shaped their understanding of their maleness. The 3 stories are different, and they certainly do not represent every story. But they are real stories, spoken out of real lives. And that is where our theologizing and our gratitude needs to begin.
The first time that I was alone with my son, truly alone, he was about 3 days old. And as I held him in my arms, giving him the grand tour of his new home, I thought what many people might think. Dear God, I hope I don't break him. Parenting in those early days and weeks and months was actually pretty easy. If he wanted to go somewhere or be somewhere or do something, that was fine. But since he had no way of communicating these wants, other than some clear requests for food, changings, and rest, and since he couldn't walk and didn't yet have friends that would come pick him up, he went and did pretty much what I chose. Simply rolling over was a far-fetched dream of his at the time, and I lived with a somewhat comfortable sense of him being totally dependent. He did eventually roll over, and then as he could not yet walk, he rolled all around, from room to room, with a joyous sense of freedom and an authentic laughter, rooted solely in the moment. I carried him through the parts of the world that I wanted him to see, and we smiled and sang. And once he could walk and then run, we explored play structures and tested the limits of swings, studied the way that balls fly and bounce, and we found laughs almost everywhere we looked. Anthropologist Jane Goodall said, "One thing that I learned from watching chimpanzees with their infants is that having a child should be fun." And it is. Raising a child is not all fun and games, however. Author Deborah Ginsburg spoke to this when she wrote, "The human heart was not designed to beat outside the human body." And yet, each child represented just that. A parent's heart bared, beating forever outside its chest. The more I came to terms with the truth that my son is not an extension of me, and that he actually exists separately outside of me, the more complicated things became, and the more vulnerable I felt. I held on to a sense of duty to guide and protect him, and he continued to grow and explore and expose himself to the world and its complicated options. He went places I hadn't gone, saw things I hadn't seen, learned things I didn't know, and taught me things about life, the world, and myself that I couldn't have learned from anyone else. The world knew him less and less as my son, and more as an individual. And over the past 18 years, I have become less and less his dad, and more his friend. My son and I are similar in many ways, and we often agree. Our senses of humor are closely aligned, as are our senses of justice. And we both do the best we can do with what we have to do it every day. We do sometimes disagree, and when this happens, I consider Maya Angelou's suggestion, if you don't like something, change it. And if you can't change it, change your attitude. As a parent, oftentimes my attitude is the thing that needs the changing the most. As I watched my son grow from a roller to a walker to a runner, I reminded myself that his heart is his own, and his life is his own, and his choices belong to him. The best that I can aspire to do is to try to be a guide, a support, and a true friend. Fortunately, I have my son to teach me how. Happy Father's Day, Dad. I love you so much, and happy Father's Day, everybody.
Hi, my name is Theo Harper. I am a member of First Unitarian Universalist Church of Portland, Oregon, and have been for about 37 years. During my time at First Church, I have enjoyed working with people and enjoyed engaging with the congregants. I've been a member of the choir, and I'm currently a member of the Board of Trustees. I've been asked to talk about fatherhood and manliness. I have two boys, both of them grown at this point, and being a father has been a real valuable thing and challenging at times. When my wife, who happens to be white, and I discussed this issue, she noted that she did not have the best parenting, and I don't feel like I did either. As parents, we've read and studied and tried to be the best parents we could, but I'm sure we failed. You try to be a good example to your kids, but not always does it work. Like when I went to drop off a monitor at Goodwill, and the attendant asked if it worked, and I said, why, sure. And my son said, no, Daddy, that hasn't worked for a long time. You know that. Out of the mouths of babes. Being a father has not always been an easy job. And if you'd asked me when I was in my 20s if I was going to be a father, I'd probably have said, sure. But I wasn't really thinking about it. As a father, I have tried, again, to be a good example and failed on occasion, though I was successful also. I think if I had it to do over again, I would want to spend more time with my children and be more available. When I was thinking of how having two boys has affected my thoughts of manliness, I had difficulty with this. You see, for me, the question of manliness has never been something I thought much about. I've always looked at being a man, or manliness, as being something that's biological or sociological. And you might say, well, of course, he's never had to ask that question or think about it, but that's not true. I've had challenges regarding my manliness throughout my life. However, to borrow from a favorite cartoon character, Popeye, I am what I am, and that's all that I am. Because I've been asked to do this homily, I've meditated on this question, and I'm afraid I haven't come up with a very good answer. I think that my manliness comes from a lot of different sources. The people I've grown up with, my family, my friends. I also think that having the example of a father who, despite a lot of challenges, stuck with my mother for over 50 years. And or my uncle, who, when my aunt had 2 bouts of cancer, stayed with her through that until she died. You know, I looked to the dictionary for the definition of manliness and found the definition of strong, virile, having characteristics of a man. I thought it was quite funny because I wanted to know what those were. My children have confirmed for me a lot of my thoughts regarding manliness and maybe life. Life is a bumpy road, and it's best to wear a seatbelt. Life does not always turn out the way you want it, and sometimes there are rough patches that if you hang on through those rough patches, quite often it settles down, smooths out. That I knew all that I need to know, and that I know nothing at all. It's important to be open to the mystery and to listen. Most often, if I think of being manly, it's probably most true of me when I'm being stubborn, willful, or pig-headed. Luckily, with a little time and a good night's sleep, those things go away. As a man of color, I had to come up with ways of thinking about how I would present to my children what it means to engage in this society as a man of color. And yet, never had to do that because my kids have had the benefit, or maybe the challenge, of hearing their parents talk openly about what it means to be a black man in this society. What we hoped to teach our children was that they are young, gifted, and black, and that there are some people who do not appreciate that. We wanted to develop independent, healthy, strong, empathic, and joyful children. I've therefore been delighted and surprised at their progress. As I said, I've been in First Church for a long time, and there have been some people who've been notable in my life from the church, such as Alan Deal, Bill Sinkford, Rick Martin, Dick Ewell, Vincent Fitzgerald, and they've been very helpful to define what it means to be a father and to love and be caring. My father and my wife's father have been helpful as well, and they've helped me to understand that there is no such thing as a perfect father, but you can learn from others. If I am a good father, it's because I've had the benefit of so many opportunities and been blessed in so many ways, and I hope I can continue to be a reasonably decent father and perhaps a good enough grandfather.
Hello, I'm Ian Carlton. I'm the son of E. Michael Carlton, Happy Father's Day, Dad, and Susan Robinson. I'm the partner of Rebecca Sanders and the son-in-law of Roger Sanders. Happy Father's Day to you as well. And I'm the father of Vivian Sanders Carlton, our third grader, and Everett Sanders Carlton, our kindergartner. To them, I'm Dada. These two kids are the most amazing things I've ever witnessed. They absorb every word and recall every event. And being their dad makes me so appreciative of my parents and their efforts. When Reverend Sinkford asked me if I would speak about the UU Church and maleness and gender roles, I was a little torn. Commercialized Father's Day seems to validate patriarchy. Advertisements instruct you to give your dad something manly to acknowledge his dominance. And that vision of fatherhood contradicts the work I do to address my own deep-rooted patriarchal tendencies. I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, occasionally attending the UU Fellowship there. It was a liberal bastion in the sea of conservatism, a safe house for atheists, pagans, LGBTQ folk, and people from all backgrounds. I loved how people questioned the world around them and sought truth and justice. But I've come to realize that patriarchy was still present in that church, with women teaching the youth programs and predominantly male leadership. But I found that no one can avoid swallowing gulps of patriarchy if you're swimming in a conservative sea, even if you're wearing a UU life vest. It wasn't until I crossed the country for graduate school that I realized how much I'd been running from toxicity of patriarchy, racism, and closed-mindedness. The realization was brought on when I discovered that all those things presented themselves even in Berkeley, California. The difference was that Berkeleyans were much more aware of them and committed to an alternative. And their awareness extended to me. From being considered one of the most progressive in South Carolina and Atlanta, I suddenly became one of the most conservative in the room. New California friends and colleagues would turn to me for an explanation of conservative values. I was initially defensive, but also found myself scared to learn that I was essentially able to explain many things, which exposed some of my underlying beliefs that contradicted my identity as a liberal. It was a hard pill to swallow. My patriarchal tendencies also emerged in my relationship with my new California girlfriend, now my wife, as I learned to unbottle emotions and later be a more engaged parent. We promised one another on our wedding day that we would strive for a balanced relationship that allowed us both to cultivate our professional lives and be present parents. We have pushed against the patriarchal expectations of employers, colleagues, friends, and those tendencies that continue to reemerge in me. Bringing that awareness into my parenting has been critical. My parents provided a model that was a step removed from their more patriarchal examples, and I want our kids to have a model that's another step towards a balanced society, one that they can embody and improve upon with their partners and children. For me, this means striving to be a respectful equal in my marriage, lifting up others in the workplace, and using the undeserved advantages that I have as a man in today's society to make it fair. With the kids, we unpack gender norms in children's classics, we focus on emotional awareness and nonviolent communication, and we try to surround our kids with other excellent models. It's one reason I've entrusted them to First Unitarian Sunday School each weekend. Now, I make their lunch and take them to school, but feeding their curiosity is the real challenge. I hand them a bowl of cereal, and they respond with questions about injustices and how we play a role in social progress. But toxic masculinity surrounds us and makes this hard work. And to be honest, sometimes the work seems too hard or inconvenient. But seeing my kids grow, mimic, and mature keeps me striving. I relish this parenting journey, even as I trip and stumble along the way. And I appreciate all the help I receive from my family and our larger community. If we strip away the patriarchy associated with Father's Day, we're left with an essential celebration of parents. So if you're a father, I hope you feel celebrated today. And to my dad and all you dads out there, happy Father's Day.
I hope you will all join me in extending your gratitude to Ian and Theo and Brad for sharing some of their stories on this day when we honor fathers and the Dharma, the truth of fatherhood. Will you pray with me now? Spirit of life and of love, strong Mother God, warm Father God, God of many names and every gender. We know that the only promised land worth all this time in the wilderness is that land in which we can all be who we are somehow meant to be. We know that when we speak of justice, the only violence involved is the breaking of the chains that hold us down. And we know that we do not make this journey alone, that we can survive only because of the love and the support we receive. On this day, we remember all those who have gone the extra mile for us and with us. And we are grateful for the chance to go the extra mile for others, for our children, if we are lucky enough to have them, and to go the extra mile for other children, even when we stumble, even when we forget, even when we get it wrong. The beloved community is about accompaniment far more than it is about reaching any particular destination. And so on this day, we give thanks and even praise for the very human folks, the fathers and the mothers, and all the elders and ancestors who have pointed the way, who have wished us well, and traveled with us a piece, who have been with us and somehow will always be with us. On this Father's Day, may we all find blessing. May we all be blessings, holding one another as we are held by the Spirit and in the Spirit, held not in bondage, not in chains, but held by that love that will not let us go. May that be so, and amen. I invite you to join now in singing our final hymn, Break Every Chain.
There is power when we call on justice. There is power when we call on justice. There is power when we call on justice. To break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. To break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. There is power when we call on justice. There is power when we call on justice. There is power when we call on justice. To break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. To break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. There's a body rising up. There's a body rising up. There's a body rising up. To break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. To break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. There's a body rising up. There's a body rising up. There's a body rising up. every chain, break every chain, break every chain. To break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. I hear the chains falling. 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 I hear the chains falling.
The freedom to think what you want to think is important, but it is the freedom to be loved for who you truly are that describes the beloved community. On this Father's Day, we bless all those who parent. We thank all those who have parented us, and we promise to work for a world less rigid and more welcoming to every human spirit and every child of God. This is the day we have been given. Let us rejoice in it and be glad. Go in peace, practice love. Amen.